7:38, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Appreciate you listening along with Joan Jones and Johnny B. I'm Dan Mandis, and on the Newsmaker hotline is Matthew Hurtt. Matthew, how are you?
Doing great, Dan. It's been a great week, and you're sounding good this morning.
You know, I would absolutely disagree with you on that. It's kind of funny you say that, because I was talking to Johnny off the air, because I just did this whole segment on like the Venezuelans taking over apartment buildings and all this illegal immigration and everything that's going on. And at the end of that, I'm like, oh my Lord. And so I said, good morning. It's like my little joke and my communication to the audience that I know that I just went into the world is ending mode. You know what I mean? But the problem is, Matthew, this is the state of our country right now. So I have to cover this stuff. And there's no way to make it sound happy and fun for a Friday morning show. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
I was in Chicago over the weekend, over the Labor Day weekend, and of course some of the headlines suggest that the Venezuelan groups are moving to Chicago as well, and it's a serious concern. You know, our border is unsecured thanks to the Biden-Harris administration. We have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who are streaming across the border. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they're coming from, and they don't get a court date for 4 or 5 or 6 years, and we know that many of them don't return to court for their immigration hearing, and it is chaotic. And every state is now a border state, and every town is a border town, and we have serious issues of crime and health concerns, people who are coming to the country where they don't have the same health standards as we do, right. And it's a serious concern, and American voters are worried about it, and rightfully so. Well,
you say that, but then you look at some of the polling, and Kamala Harris is still doing relatively well. But you talked about Chicago. I read, and I forgot to mention this in that, you know, our world is going to hell segment that I did a few minutes ago. They're also in Dallas. So there is video out there. I don't know if you've seen this, but there is video of a guy, innocent guy, that for whatever reason, no real reason at all, he's beaten up by a pack of these Venezuelans. He's on the ground and they're kicking him and everything else. And so the Dallas police and the local authorities there, they have confirmed that these gangbangers are there as well. So we've got all of these American cities that are just going to be plagued with this kind of thing. And the open border obviously is tied to Kamala Harris. And so as we segue into how can Kamala Harris actually defend these policies, how does she defend these policies? And do you think that the brain trust over there at ABC will actually bring up what has happened in Denver and in Chicago and in Dallas?
Well, Dan, they're indefensible, and this is an opportunity for conservatives to make the case. The Wall Street Journal had an article earlier this week. The headline is "Democrats Try to Stop South Texas Swing Toward Trump," and it's based out of Rio Grande City, which is a 97% Hispanic community. And there is a conservative trained by Leadership Institute, where I work full-time, who is running for sheriff. And we are seeing what we see among immigrant populations in the United States, particularly along the border, and in places like Northern Virginia, where there's a large Asian immigrant population, a large Hispanic immigrant population. Those individuals came to this country the legal way, and it is burdensome. I have a pretty good insight into the process to get an H-1B visa or a J-1 visa, and it is burdensome. And the people who have come here to create their American dream or to achieve something impossible in their own nation are very frustrated with this process, and it is an important conversation to have with voters, those who can cast a ballot in November, about what it means to have secure borders and what it means to have safe communities through an immigration process that makes sense. And I don't think that Kamala Harris is going to be able to defend that. I hope next week when she debates Donald Trump that he's able to make a strong case for strong borders, highlighting these instances in Aurora and Chicago and Dallas. But it is an indefensible position, and Americans are seeing it in many of their own communities.
I think, Matthew, the frustrating part for me is I know what her answer is going to be. Her answer is going to be, well, we have a broken immigration system. We're trying to fix it. We have the bipartisan, border protection bill, which we all know was complete and utter BS. But that's going to be her answer. And the moderators are going to let her get away with it. And so it's up to Donald Trump to be concise and incredibly clear about why this is the fault of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. He needs to be able to hit this out of the park, because it is his one chance to try to hold her accountable and present his side of the story to the American people. Because you know what Kamala Harris is going to say? She's going to say that Donald Trump killed the bill by reaching out to the Republican senators and so on and so forth. She does it's like her pat answer. So how confident are you in Donald Trump being able to do what he needs to do to combat Kamala Harris in this debate?
I'm in a group text with some friends of mine from Murfreesboro, some political friends, and one of them, Steve, made an important point this morning ahead of this debate. If Donald Trump goes through half of the debate and he's on message and he's calm, but Kamala Harris performs better than expected, the bar is pretty low for her, and it's been set pretty low by conservative media. I think that he may get a little more frustrated. And so what Donald Trump has to do at this debate is make the case on these issues, immigration, national security, the economy, concisely. And I think he has to stay on message. And this is something you and I talk about a lot, because the American people want to know what the policy solutions are. They see what the policies are doing in their own communities. And he just has to stay calm and talk about these issues through the lens of the American people. Now, there aren't going to be there's not a live audience.
Right.
And so looking directly into the camera and communicating to the American people will resonate with voters. And this debate will have tens of millions of viewers live, and then so many more in clips and audio segments like what you play and what you will play next week. And he's got a real opportunity, but he has to pull back from sort of the messaging and the style that he's taken on the campaign trail to attack her personally and really speak to these issues.
Well, because the issues are on his side. I mean, there's no other way to say it. The issues are on his side. I want to play you an audio bite. I played this yesterday, and it is a comment from Kamala Harris where she's talking about demilitarizing our schools.
Demilitarizing our schools and taking police officers out of schools.
So that's something that she said, obviously. Then we had the shooting at the Georgia school a couple of days ago. We covered it heavily yesterday and today. But my point is that it was an armed SRO that was able to stop the carnage. And once the armed SRO walked into the building, the gunman put the gun down. And so I guess the question needs to be framed in such a way where they would say to Kamala Harris, do you still believe, given the fact that it was an armed SRO that stopped the carnage in Atlanta, that we need to demilitarize our schools? And I would like to see how she spins that.
The only people who carry firearms in a gun-free zone are people who are intent on breaking the law in the first place.
Yep.
And so, I grew up in Rutherford County schools. We had armed SROs in the high school setting, and those are individuals who we have deputized and trusted to keep the schools safe. It is not out of the question to ensure that those individuals have the resources. In the absence of other law-abiding citizens, we see countless stories all of the time where law-abiding, caring citizens who have the training and they are either licensed or certified or they have a concealed carry permit are able to step up in the supermarket, step up in a park setting, step up in a public setting, and stop violence that is inescapable in some segments of our community, but it is especially prevalent in vulnerable communities where the law has said you can't carry a firearm here. When you're looking at a gun-free zone, be it a school zone or anywhere else, The only people who are carrying firearms are people who are already going to break the law. And so it is out of the question to remove tools from those people we have trusted and deputized, law enforcement agents primarily, in a school setting to take their firearms away from them. It is absolutely insane.
So let me ask you, my gut feeling tells me that the sugar high of Kamala Harris coming out of the DNC is over. And I feel like, the weird accents and the refusing to really speak to the media. She's literally, as you know, running from the media now, pretending to be on the phone and so forth. Do you think that she is plateaued and now she's, again, that sugar high is now starting to go down?
Yeah, Kamala Harris is settled post-convention. That bump didn't last too long. And looking at the polling, I'm looking at Nate Silver this morning, and in Pennsylvania, which is the state that I'm going to talk about the most when I call in for the next 8 weeks, is, the Trump line is moving up. He's about 0.7 points down. In Wisconsin, he's starting to move up. And again, one poll doesn't tell us much, but several polls show a trend. And what we're going to look for in the next 8 weeks is when does Kamala Harris peak somewhere? Has she peaked? And when is Donald Trump going to peak? And what we'll see, stepping back from the national polls and looking at individual states, is the trend line up for Donald Trump within the margin of error, but then at what point does he cross over? So if we see at the end of October in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, and Arizona, that Donald Trump is trending up and he's within a 0.1 or 0.2 of Kamala Harris, on November 5th, it is conceivable that he will peak above Kamala Harris, and then we'll see success and victory in some of those states.
All right. Matthew, how can folks find you on Twitter?
I'm on Twitter at Matthew Hurtt, MatthewHurtt.